Well, hello and welcome to Celebration Bar Review's Florida Bar Review introduction. This video is designed for those who are considering taking the Florida Bar exam, or maybe you know already you want to take it and you just want a little more information about the test and our course and how to prepare you for it. So, short little video to give you that information. Let's jump right in. The Florida Bar exam is given twice a year. It's given on the last Tuesday and Wednesday of February and the last Tuesday and Wednesday of July. Typically, the exam is only given in one location. That's in the convention center in Tampa. And, you know, historically, there's anywhere from 800 up to about 3,000 bar takers per administration of the exam. The application fee to sit for the Florida Bar exam is based on a sliding scale, and that scale is subject to change, as all this information is. So you certainly want to contact the Florida Bar examiners as soon as possible to request your application and have a fee determination made. Currently, as I'm recording, fees range from around $600 if you're currently in law school, up to $3,000 or more for attorneys who have been in practice on the basis of their years of practice. There are also some laptop fees and some late fees if you file after the normal deadlines. If you're having a heart attack right now, I can tell you that I understand this is a very expensive bar exam fee. I think it's probably the highest in the country. And it's indicative of the general attitude in Florida, which is that the bar and the bar examiners would really prefer that you not take this exam unless you're really seriously committed to doing so. So there's a lot of hurdle jumping involved. One big part of that hurdle jumping is the character and fitness background check. I think it's probably the most aggressive and intensive of any state in the U.S. Typically takes anywhere from 6 to 8 months to complete a background check, a little less if you're already in law school and you're young, much longer if you're older and if you've had any kinds of financial difficulties or challenges or problems in your practice previously. If there is any problem in your background, anything out of the ordinary, you could expect, I think, definitely longer than 6 to 8 months to do the investigation. Now, if you think you have a problem, you should definitely visit the Florida Bar Examiner website. I think that's www.floridabarexam.org. Check the rules for their information. It's a very comprehensive site. It'll give you a good idea of what the examiners are looking for and what you can expect in that part of the process. In order to apply for the Florida exam, you don't need to complete the character and fitness background check before you apply to take the test, but it does have to be submitted to the examiners prior to receiving your test admission ticket, so that's why you want to get started early. And what that means is you're going to have to pay the examination fee up front, and you'll have to fill out a simple one-page information sheet. You submit that, then you get all the forms for character and fitness, and you have to complete those prior to the exam. Most of that can be done online, as you know, but probably not all. So the application for character and fitness has to be approved by the bar within 25 months of the time that you pass all of the sections of the test. So there's a reasonable period of time built in after you've gotten your character and fitness submitted. Now, with respect to filing dates for the exam, currently, if you're taking the February exam, you need to file before November 15th of the previous year. For July exam, you need to file before May 1st, but you can file right up to almost a week before the exam. But remember, you're submitting all your paperwork, and then you're going to pay a higher fee because the filing fees are built on a sliding scale depending on how close to the exam date you end up registering. As I said, there is a fee for laptops that changes from exam to exam, and there's special software that has to be installed. If you're applying for the laptop program, which, by the way, is what almost everyone does now, the deadline is January 1st for the February test takers and June 1st for the July test takers. Florida Bar examiners are headquartered in Tallahassee, and so check their website. They've got a lot of information, as I said. Now, let me talk for a moment about the structure of the Florida Bar exam. There are actually two components to it. On Tuesday of each exam is what's called the Florida portion, and in the morning the exam always begins with 3 separate 1-hour essay questions. Now, these essay questions can be drawn from any of the multi-state subjects that I'll talk about in a moment, or in addition to that, questions can be taken from the following subjects: Florida constitutional law, Florida trust law, Florida domestic relations, UCC 3, which is negotiable instruments, UCC 9, which is secured transactions, Florida professional responsibility. And then it can be also taken, essays can come from the MBE subjects of contracts and sales, federal constitutional law, although that's very uncommon, real property, and torts. By and large, contracts, property, and torts are the three subjects you're going to be dealing with. Evidence and procedure and crim all come in the Florida multiple choice part of the exam. Nonetheless, these are all the potential subjects for essay questions, and that's a lot to study for. Of equal significance, in my view, is the change to permit 3 rather than 2 subjects that could be tested in each segment of Florida Part A. In other words, the essays can have 3 subjects rather than just 1 or 2. So you can get a fairly involved question. There was one of those in February of 2014 that had 3 subjects, so that's the first time we saw that. Multiple choice topics can also contain up to 3 subjects built within them. So business entities, for example, could be corporations, agency, and partnership. Now, in addition to what are 2 relatively new subjects, the UCC 3 and 9, a couple of other changes were recently made to existing subjects. Briefly, business entities was broadened, and I'll tell you in a moment it's a multiple choice topic, but it's been broadened from specifically corporations and partnerships to now include agencies and other types of business forms like LLPs and LLCs. Criminal law, again a Florida multiple choice topic, has been broadened to include constitutional criminal procedure and juvenile delinquency. Family law or domestic relations now includes the subject of dependency, and professional responsibility is now more broadly characterized as professionalism or ethics. Now, to return to the scoring process for essays, each of the 3 essays you answer will be worth 100 raw points for a total of 300 raw, and that will consist of your morning session. The essays are typically relatively straightforward. In years past, I found them quite difficult and much more idiosyncratic than they've been over the last few years. Now there tends to be fewer questions that I would describe as Yankee go-home questions. In other words, something so specific to Florida that you'd have very little ability to get the question right. The examiners as a whole have moved away from that towards what I think are fairer, more commonly based law questions. The addition of the 2 UCC subjects we think will be primarily experienced as crossover or second subject topics. As I'm recording this, we've only seen secured transactions tested once, and negotiable instruments has not been tested. Professional responsibility is also one of the subjects that we see as a crossover, and so that's the small 3, UCC 3, UCC 9, and professional responsibility are the little 3 or the small 3. Now, typically, 1 or 2 of the essays have come from the multi-state subject areas of torts, contracts, or property, with very little emphasis on Florida differences in those subjects. So you've got torts, contracts, property, and then the remaining big items are Florida con law, Florida domestic relations, Florida trust law. Those are the topics that are on the essays. And as I said, one constant has been the inclusion of professional responsibility or professionalism now on the part of at least one essay on almost every exam. Well, that's your morning session, 3 one-hour essays. After a lunch break in the afternoon, you're going to be given 100 multiple choice questions, of which 90 actually count towards your score. 10 of the questions are designed for testing and evaluation, but you won't know which 10 they are. 3 broad topic areas will be tested in these 90 questions, and the questions will be integrated, so it won't be all in one subject at one spot. These multiple choice questions are given over a 3-hour time period. It's mandated by the Florida Supreme Court that one of the topic areas be civil and criminal procedure, and this would be Florida criminal and civil procedure, so that's always given in a multiple choice format. 2 other topic areas will be tested along with procedure in the afternoon session. Typically, those are drawn from the following, either from Florida wills, Florida evidence, or Florida business entities. And as I said, business entities now includes corporations, partnerships, and agency. On recent exams, Florida evidence has been tested most of the time, and the exam has then alternated between testing Florida wills or testing Florida business entities. Now, out of those 90 questions that you take, each is worth 1 point, so you're now going to have a total combined raw score available to you of 390 points, 300 from the essays, 90 from the multiple choice. That score then is combined with your multi-state score, and everyone in Florida will have to take the multi-state. There is no wave around for the multi-state exam. So using those two scores and something called the equi percentile method, your 390 points raw will be reduced to a 200-point scaled score, and then merged with your multi-state score for the overall passing number. Now, that's the Tuesday part of the exam. On Wednesday, the second day of the exam, you'll have the multi-state bar, which, as I said, is a 200-question multiple choice exam. 100 questions are given in a 3-hour morning session, and 100 questions are given in a 3-hour afternoon session. Again, of those 200 questions, 190 count, 10 are for development of new tests and don't count, and you won't know which are which. The multi-state exam is described elsewhere on our website. I'm not going to repeat that information other than to tell you that beginning in 2015, the multi-state includes a new topic, which is federal jurisdiction and federal civil procedure. So jurisdiction and civil procedure will be part of the multi-state exam, and we detail all of that in our multi-state pages for you. Now, in order to calculate your score on the multi-state, the examiners will take the number of questions you get correct out of 190. This would be considered to be your raw score. And then, based on a scale given to the Florida examiners by the National Conference, the people that write the multi-state, in order to make every administration of the multi-state roughly equal, a certain number of scaled points are added to your multi-state score. This will create a multi-state scaled score, actually a sliding scale with more points added for lower raw scores. In general, about 15 to 20 points get added to your raw multi-state score. So let's say you got something like 120 multi-state questions correct. They'd add 15 to 20 points. That would give you a scaled score of something like 135 to 140. The reason I can't tell you that with accurate precision is it's a sliding scale and it varies from exam to exam. All right, so how is the overall score calculated? Well, the examiners take the scaled multi-state score and they put them in rank order for all the Florida applicants from highest score to lowest. They then take all the raw Florida scores and they put all of those in rank order from top to bottom. The highest MBE scaled score is then assigned to the highest Florida raw score, and all scores are matched this way. This is what's called equi percentile. What it's going to do is take your 390 raw Florida points and reduce them down to a maximum 190 scaled or 200 scaled points, or 190 raw. The examiners then create those two scaled scores, one for your multi-state and one for Florida. You're given then two separate scores, a scaled multi-state score and a scaled Florida score. Those numbers are added together, and the result of those two divided by 2 has to equal 136 or greater. Now, what this means is that if you do well on multi-state, it would offset a lower Florida score, but the reverse is also true. A better Florida score can offset a lower multi-state score. As a result, and this is critical, it's not necessary that you have 136 or greater on both parts of the exam in order to pass, only that your combined score be 136 or greater. I'm not going to tell you more about the scoring. It gets very complicated. We do describe it in detail in our course. But what you want to know is that every essay is significantly important and graded on its own. Every part of the Florida multiple choice is important, and the multi-state is important, but you can offset one with a lower score on the other. The other really interesting thing to keep in mind is that if you do pass one section, let's say you get a 136 in Florida and a 124 on your multi-state, well, that's not enough to get an overall pass, but you can bank your passing Florida score, and on the next administration of the exam, you could take, in this case, the multi-state only, or if your scores have been reversed, vice versa. So, if time doesn't permit you to give a full effort on both parts of the exam in preparation, you could certainly view it in the sense of, I'm coming in, I'm going to take one part of the test now, I'll take the other part next time through. That's definitely not the situation in most states. It's a particular idiosyncrasy of Florida that actually works, I think, in many candidates' favor. There's obviously a lot more to say about scoring, but we'll save that for the course. I just wanted to give you the highlights and a basic overview of the process. So what's the passing rate like in Florida? Well, generally, it's in the mid 70th percentile, about 75% is typical. The pass rate for repeat takers is usually much lower, and for out-of-state practitioners, it's also much lower. That's the bad news. But the good news is that our course, now in its 20th year as I'm recording, has had historically much higher pass rates, well over 90% now for more than 10 years. And that's the overall rate for everyone that we work with, including repeat bar takers. One of the reasons for that is that our course is very Florida specific. We get you through all the Florida subjects. We teach you to write essays as the Florida examiners want you to do them. And we've got a real focus on what makes Florida unique and different, even though we cover multi-state and all of the topics. I would say that one of the advantages of a course like ours is that we can work with people individually and identify problem areas, and whether that's multi-state or essay writing or Florida multiple choice, we can help manage that work. So how do we do that? Well, one of the great things is that we use this stepped repetition method of study. We've got lectures and outlines and practice questions for every part of the test. So in our course, we're going to direct you into specific written material. Then you're going to watch a lecture on that material, and then you're going to do practice questions, and then you're going to come back to that subject repeatedly over time, doing more questions to build on your understanding and your knowledge. All of that will be put together for you in a specific study guide, which is a list of the assignments and how long each one will take. In general, if you're going to be taking the Florida and multi-state exam, you should plan on about 250 to 300 hours of overall total study time, and that's that's a fair amount of time. So you need to get started early. Many of you are practicing attorneys. I can't say it, but you are them, and you're going to have to really balance your time. And so our view is about 20 hours a week is what you should plan on for study. In order to reach that, we think it's optimum to start 4 to 6 months before your bar exam. And frankly, you almost need to do that to get through character and fitness anyway. Now, as you probably know by this point, there is no reciprocity in Florida. So if you are licensed somewhere else, there is no way around the process. You cannot waive in. You cannot waive the professional responsibility exam, which is a separate test that everyone has to take. You cannot waive the multi-state bar, and you cannot waive the Florida part of the bar. I'll just tell you that the symbol on the Florida bar examiner's letterhead is a griffin. That's the mythological character whose job was to protect the riches of the gods. I think that's a fairly appropriate and apt description of the way the examiners treat their role in Florida. And they do create a number of hurdles, both economically, difficulty of the exam, the paperwork, all that are designed to keep a non-serious bar taker out. But here's the good news. If you're actually serious about doing the exam, taking the exam and going through the process, there's absolutely no reason to think that you cannot get admitted in Florida or that you cannot pass the bar exam. I have not found it to be that difficult an exam. I've taken it, I've passed it. I would say certainly in comparison to New York or California or even Georgia, God forbid, I think Florida is an easier exam, but it's one in which specific study strategies and careful work will pay off for you. Now, you may have some questions about your qualifications to sit for the exam. Don't direct those at us. We can't answer them. You have to contact the examiners directly. I can tell you right now that the rule in Florida at present is that you must be a graduate of an ABA accredited or provisionally accredited law school in order to sit for the exam, or a graduate of some Puerto Rican law schools, and members of the Puerto Rico bar may take the Florida exam as well. If you have other foreign legal credentials or an LLM and you're a foreign legal attorney, that will not substitute for the Juris Doctorate requirement. And so as of this recording, foreign trained attorneys are not eligible for this test. Because there's no reciprocity, it doesn't matter how long you've been in practice or in what states, you'll have to go through all of the steps that are there. So make sure you get started early, make sure that you talk to the examiners, and begin your studies as soon as possible. If you're doing that, I invite you to really talk to us and look at taking our course. We've really designed this course for busy people. We've got plenty of third-year law students, don't get me wrong, but if you're not having the luxury of being able to study full-time for 6 or 7 weeks, you can still pass this test quite successfully. We're glad to provide you with more information about our courses here on the website, or you can call me directly. My direct phone line is 864-365-6083. I look forward to hearing from you, speaking with you, and having the chance, I hope, to celebrate with you a passing Florida result. Thanks very much.